Hi, I'm Hank Wilson, and welcome to another episode of The Hidden History of the Southwest. Today we are looking for gold and glory. Before I get too far into it today, how about subscribing to the podcast? Come on now. Tell your friends you found the coolest place on the net to learn about often overlooked parts of the history of the American Southwest. Well, maybe not the coolest, but a pretty cool place. Anyway, thanks. I'd appreciate it. Now, as I've discussed in the past, the Spanish presence in the Americas was pretty much an accident. Until Columbus bumped into the islands of Guanahani, which is Watling Island in the Bahamas. Columbus named it San Salvador. Cuba, Hispaniola, present-day Haiti, and the Dominican Republic. They had no idea anything or anyone was here. Even then, it wasn't until 1519 when Alonso Alvarez de Pineda mapped the Gulf Coast for the first time. So, what intrigued the Spanish so much about this new continent that they encountered? In 1528, Álvar Núñez Cabeza de Vaca, who I've talked about on other podcasts, exploring Texas and the Gulf Coast, and he did explore the Gulf Coast, but his exploration fell apart. Remember, he got shipwrecked, and he and some of his crew wandered really across present-day Texas and northern New Mexico, and probably into a little bit of what is now New Mexico. Now, during their journeys and capture, they heard stories from the people about cities or places that were wealthy. Now, we don't know exactly what the indigenous people meant by wealth or how they described the various locations. But De Vaca's later telling of those encounters sparked an interest in what the Spanish called or were labeled the 7 cities of gold or the 7 cities of Cíbola. But why? Why would these stories matter to the Spanish? Well, in your history books, world history, remember the Muslims had at one time conquered what is now Spain and Portugal. They came out of North Africa and pretty much conquered, like I said, Spain and Portugal. Well, in 714, the story goes that 7 Catholic bishops and their followers, their faithful followers, fled across the Atlantic to a land known as Antillia, the name of which incidentally was the source of the name Antilles, which was initially applied to the West Indian islands of the Caribbean. However, the Antillean islands failed to produce large quantities of gold and or silver, and by 1539, lands reported on by Cabeza de Vaca and his companions were believed to contain an El Dorado, the gold, known as Cíbola. They were looking for that city. Now, in that year, Viceroy Antonio de Mendoza dispatched Fray Marcos de Niza and the African Estevanico to search the area. This exploration cost the life of Estevanico at Hawiku, the southernmost of the Zuni pueblos in western New Mexico. On his return to New Spain, today's Mexico, Fray Marcos reported that he had seen golden cities, the small of which was larger than Mexico City. Today, we know the good friar exaggerated what he saw. Why, I have no idea. But he definitely didn't see any golden cities, and certainly not one larger than Mexico City would have been at the time. You see, in 1539, Mexico City, then known as Tenochtitlan, was a large and populous city. Estimates for its population ranged from 200 to 400,000 people. So as I said, the good friar was, as we say, a teller of tall tales. Now, the odds are, and the reality is, he exaggerated what he saw. But that report was enough to prompt the 1540 follow-up expedition of Francisco Vázquez de Coronado. Coronado succeeded in capturing Hawiku and learned the true nature of it as well as other nearby pueblos. In the following year, disappointed over the failure to follow the 7 cities of Cíbola, Coronado launched a futile search for Quivira, another legendary wealthy city. This undertaking crossed the panhandle of Texas. His route took him from Arizona into New Mexico, then Texas, north to Oklahoma, and finally into Kansas. He found Quivira. It was situated in what is now central Kansas. Now, nobody's really certain of its exact location, and most think it was near present-day Lyons or Salina. Well, who lived there? The people of Quivira were ancestral Wichita, a tribe known for their agricultural, bison honey, and trading networks. Now, personally, I think the fact that they heard about Quivira was that it was a major trading center, and that led the Spanish to believe it would have been a wealthy city. To the people who lived there, it most likely was. The Spanish didn't think or really understand the differences in the cultures and how each looked at material things. That is why, when in 1541, when Coronado arrived there, to his disappointment, he only found villages of grass huts and a population focused on agriculture and hunting bison. Quivira was a major trading center with connections to other tribes across the Great Plains and beyond. They were known for their tobacco pipes and even traded obsidian from Mexico. Now, even though Coronado reported on what he found and his failure to find gold and silver riches, that didn't stop future expeditions from trying to locate a city of gold. Those expeditions were led by people such as Francisco Lea de Bonilla and Juan de Onate, as they attempted to find the legendary cities of gold or El Dorado. Now, Coronado's expedition was a failure economically, but it did generate a wealth of geographic and ethnographic information, which even to this day has proven valuable to historians and people who study the cultures, such as me. Now, at that same time in 1540, Hernando de Alarcon began to explore the area around the lower Colorado River. However, his main purpose was to support Coronado's expedition by navigating the Gulf of California and the Colorado River. He was the first European to travel up the Colorado River, and he confirmed that it did not connect to interior golden cities. Now, finally, in 1598, we have Juan de Onate, who I spoke about in an earlier episode of this podcast. He did explore New Mexico, Texas, Oklahoma, and possibly Kansas. He also established a permanent Spanish settlement in New Mexico, San Juan de los Caballeros. Even though he did not find much gold, he laid the groundwork for Spain's colonial presence in the region. Ultimately, though these expeditions found little gold, but the expeditions greatly expanded Spanish geographic knowledge and led to the establishment of missions and colonial administration in the region. Quite honestly, much to the detriment of the people who were residing in the area prior to the Spanish arriving. That's going to do it for this episode. I'll talk to you next time. I'm Hank Wilson, and this is The Hidden History of the Southwest.